Everyone. And I think that before we start, we should really be grateful for Tara DeWarsup and Jessica's great organization of this evening. Actually, tonight we get the very privilege of being on holy ground. We get the privilege of being on the holy ground as people break open their lives and share their lives with us, their lives of transformation, really. And most fundamentally of that life is a life of healing, that we all know the world is in so desperate need of at this moment. So this is our first collaboration between the Ignacio House of Studies and Flip the Script, two organizations that are focused on accompanying our brothers and sisters as they are leaving prison and coming back to our community. I just would like to remind you, these are some notes from our host, Tara DeWarsup, that to keep your microphones on mute. And if you would like to click the speaker view at the top right of your screen. And that if you have comments or questions, to please use the chat feature that's located at the bottom of your screen, right in the middle. And this chat will be closely moderated by Tara DeWarsup. And after this brief introduction, I'm going to introduce to you the three story sharers. And then after they are able to share their stories, there's going to be a brief time of question and answer. One of the things that I might encourage you to reflect upon this evening is perhaps helping us at Ignacio House to support future endeavors like this, where we can partner more closely with Flip the Script in order that Flip the Script might be able to accompany all the residents at Ignacio House with these deep tools for reflection that helps them give voice to their own narratives of like they do now. And if you're interested in helping with that, I just encourage you to visit our website and donate. Just a brief reminder, as I shared at the beginning, that we are on the midst of holy ground tonight. It's holy not because we're here, but it's because of what we're in the midst of, okay? It's the very holiness of the lives of the people that gather around the circle, and it's very holy because of the vulnerability and care that's being shared around the circle. So there won't be any real need for critiquing stories. We can just allow the stories to be what they are, okay? And with great reverence. And without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Jessica. Jessica Santanato, I don't know, Jessica can tell you when we met virtually. I think it was a few months ago, and it came by way of Michael Pagan calling me up on the phone just in great enthusiasm and zeal about all the gift he had received from his encounter and the tools that were offered through Jessica Santanato, who's a motivational speaker and a coach and award-winning author and founder of Flip the Script, both a book and a program that's inspired by her own experience, her very experience as a wife of what we might call a career criminal and a mother to this gang leader's children. Flip the Script is really a process. It's a program that's designed, that's giving the men with background history a platform to share their stories without any judgment and without any analysis. It's really, really quite profound. And she provides a liberating guide to breaking free of this mental incarceration of trauma, empowering the mind to forgive and find the gifts through the adversity that's being faced. So without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to Jessica, and thank you so much for your generosity, your time, and your very witness with us tonight.
I so appreciate that, Zach. Thank you. I want to say hi to everyone. There's so many people here that I have not seen. We haven't been able to run a Flip the Script event in about a year. So this is our first event in about a year. And it's really cool to merge the Toronto communities and the New York communities. So first, hi to everybody. There's this saying that oftentimes our gift is next to our wound. I don't know if you ever heard that, but it was really powerful when I heard that before, when someone said, oftentimes our gift is next to our wound. And we believe that at Flip the Script. because we all have stories, we all have our life experiences, and we can look at them as devastating and traumatic and sad and why me, poor me, or we can put on the lens, flip the perspective on that, put on the lens of love and compassion and say, how is this a blessing? How is this a lesson, a beautiful opportunity to grow? And so what Flip the Script does is it gives a platform to formerly incarcerated men a voice to speak their truth and to tell their stories. And, a main intention of this collaboration between Flip the Script and Ignacio House is to raise money so that the current Ignacio House members can go through the program, just like the three guys you'll hear tonight have. And, a couple other things that, we're expanding our services, we're expanding into New York, which is exciting. We're also doing there's a big project in Africa next year where we're teaming up with former pro athletes, former NFL players, and bringing some of the formerly incarcerated men over to Africa and work with men inside of the prisons and work with the children of incarcerated parents as well, and support the wives. And the other exciting thing is that we've partnered with a theater company to bring the stories to stage with actors. So it's called Flip the Stage, and it's a project that supports the community members who have faced incarceration and those who've been challenged by addiction and telling their stories and creating them into virtual plays because of COVID. And through this process, theater and storytelling become tools for healing, transformative justice, and social change. So this is a really exciting time. And I believe there's going to be a link or somewhere, Tara, if you can let me know where people can donate, because yes, perfect.
It's in the chat.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to introduce Michael, who's going to be our first sharer. So Michael, what's weird about him is that he says he's always torn between opposites. He says, I'm the shyest of all people. He doesn't like to be the center of attention, but he has a low-key passion for dancing. He's a very curious person, so he's always venturing out onto the unknown territory. He says it's scary, but worth it. And lastly, he says he's a stroller. He's the happiest when he's walking, but yet he always wants to stay at home in the comfort of his privacy. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for that amazing introduction. First, I want to make sure that I'm all square in my Zoom camera where people can see me. I want to take you back to the summer of 2007. I was in a humid cell. I was experiencing the loneliest and weakest moments of my life. The threat of spending the rest of my life in prison before me. It was a time of pain, confusion, and self-hate. I was in Suffolk County Jail, a correctional facility in Long Island. As you can imagine, I was miserable. The daylight never felt so heavy. The night never felt so empty. I remember how it felt, curled up on my cardboard mattress, all weepy, looking back at how wretched my childhood was, then looking at how wretched my prison experience was. The world was unfair. Poor me. I was born to a single, conflicted teenage girl who was always torn between having a good time and being a good parent, who opened the doors of our home to a man that had a knack for staining her face, leaving it all black, bloody, and blue. Being just a boy, I couldn't do anything about it. Shit, my mother was more than 3 times my age, and she couldn't even do anything about it. Maybe she didn't want to. Regardless, we just endured it like bad weather. And one day it will go away. This was the sense of the dialogue in my head as a child. Endure it like bad weather. This is how I became an expert at accepting things for what they are, living meekly with things that I cannot change. These early, horrid childhood experiences rooted me in a paralysis that came to define who I was. I grew shy and socially awkward, which meant I was weak. I became awfully quiet, which most interpreted to mean I was dumb and worthless. I was nearly invisible and hard to notice, which meant I was unlovable. Who cares for what they cannot hear and see? Poor me. At least that's how it felt going over and over and over again in my heart through these so-called truths that dominated my life. And as hurtful as this process was, I couldn't do anything else. Was prison the best that I could do? The best that I could hope for? I had to figure out what was broken inside me in the way I saw things, in the way I understood my experiences, in the way I used language to describe my day-to-day choices. It was because of this wound that I was now facing an inescapable ruin. In the summer of 2009, I was sentenced to 15 years in prison. And not too long after that, I was transferred to a state facility. I remember how it felt seeing the interior of a state prison for the first time. In comparison, the county jail was a bed and breakfast. I didn't actually feel the weight of 15 years or the significance of what was happening to me until that moment. There I was, a pencil-thin crook, struggling with my mattress in my right arm and dragging my draft bag with my left, all the while shaking like a leaf. The housing block looked like a huge warehouse with 5 French floors stacked one on top of the other, one on top of the other. It crushed me. It also took me deeper within myself. All I would ever dwell on was, how did this happen to me? How did I get here? When did my path to imprisonment begin? How was prison even a possibility? I buried myself in my cell and went bald trying to figure out where I went wrong. It wasn't as simple as I made a mistake, as some would describe it. You just don't happen to commit a series of felonies. You just don't happen to become incarcerated. It's the culmination of a process, a long process. Something inside me was severed. And this wound was discernible in the way my mind made sense of things. It's only when I started to reading and becoming sensitive to how language works that I began to see and question my internal picture of reality. It's at this point that I became conscious of what was hurting me, which was this debilitating use of language that plagued the way I processed thoughts and emotions, a usage that habitually misrepresented what was happening in the world around me and who I was in relation to these experiences. How I came to witness the value of language is through literature. Reading was my salvation. I became passionate about books. I was the guy that stole reference books from the library. I ripped out pages from books that had this unsettling but gorgeous arrangement of words and sentences. I couldn't help it. I was curious about language and about how words are organized to construct meaning in stories that can cripple or empower. A quote that became central to my healing process was the word spoken by a Native American medicine woman. Those who tell stories rule the world. This was the root of my problem. Not the feelings of fear, not the weakness, but the words that habitually defined them. Courage can be developed, weakness can be strengthened. But if the language that lives inside you cements you into this mode of being that only serves to sustain your weaknesses, your possibilities for strength will never be realized. And discovering this through the work of passionate and effective reading was the turning point for me. I began to see the pain of my incarceration in a new light. It wasn't incarceration anymore. It was an incubation, a long incubation. I infused everything I did from what I read and felt with the purpose of breaking the mold of a victim mentality. And what helped me to take my healing process to the next level was the acquisition of a certain book. It was the winter of 2009. I was hired to work in the mess hall, which is the prison cafeteria. It was one of the highest paying jobs in the state. I started out as a tabletop worker. I was responsible for wiping tables during and after lunch and dinner. After a while, I was promoted to the dishwashing crew. I worked 7 hours a day at a pay rate of 16 cents an hour for 5 days a week. I felt hideous, but I took comfort in the fact that I had a goal. I needed money for books. I remember I used to receive this homeschool catalog that was full of all sorts of learning material that I couldn't find in the prison library. I remember compiling a wish list of books I want to read once my pennies became dollars. One day I came across this antique dictionary. It was the 1828 replica of Noah Webster's American Dictionary of the English Language. It was $63, including shipping and handling. At the time, I was burning with victim and court fees, which meant that when I got paid, the state took their cut, which left me with $6. I knew that it would take me a while to save just enough money to get this book, yet I felt compelled to get it. I had a system. I had it all figured out. I would spend $2 at every commissary and save $4. I literally lived off toothpaste and cocoa butter. I did this for months. It was something about this dictionary. It resonated with me so deeply. It was a biography of language. It just didn't give me the definition of words. It told me the story of their creation. Fast forward to 6 months later, I saved enough money and got it. And it was worth the bi-weekly $4 sacrifice. Reading it over the course of many years, I came to realize the importance of being a master of the word. Words like fear and weakness are not one-dimensional terms. It's not once timid, always timid, or once weak, always weak. These words are actually directions and a compass that points somewhere to strength and courage. And in making this connection, I discovered space to grow. And it all comes down to this. And it's only this that I would have you, the audience, to know. Nothing is beyond my power to change, your power to change. I may have to work hard to make myself stronger, wiser, and braver than my former self. You may have to work hard at breaking through the barriers generated by social perceptions, but there's no such thing as a fixed reality. What is dead today could be thriving with life tomorrow. And this is only possible through the power of the word. Thanks for listening.
If anyone has any questions they'd like to ask, please feel free to add them into the chat, and any questions or comments, and we'll read them out. Thank you, Michael. That was incredibly powerful.
Yes, thank you, Michael, for such inspiration. And I encourage you, if you have any questions, comments for Michael, please to put them in the chat.
I would say, oh, put them in the chat. Oh, sorry.
So this is the answer to Kimberly's question. Where did you find your love for books? I just happened to just land on it. I was in prison. I didn't want to watch TV all day. I didn't want to go to the yard all day. So I just decided to go hang out, in a library. And in the county, the library wasn't the best of all places because, it was a complete mess. But I found, order in the chaos. And I guess that just means that, I discovered, authors that had something meaningful to say. And, that just, set in motion a whole, path of just, being an avid reader. If that answers your question.
Thank you, Michael. We have a question in from Bill, and Bill Bolger would like to know, what are you reading currently, Michael?
I'm actually reading this book by this by this author. I can't call his name now, but it's about it's a psychology book on solar and lunar consciousness, and it's about integrating these two energies to create a wholeness within a person. And I guess what I find fascinating about it is just like in Western thought, like it has a tendency to kind of support, I guess, solar thinking or solar personalities or solar, a solar way of being. But to be a more complete person and more balanced person, you have to kind of integrate the other energy, which is the moon. And these forces are not opposites; they kind of work together. So that's what I'm into right now.
Thanks, Michael. Mary Glenn says that you're such a wonderful speaker. You certainly are. And did you find it easy to transition from loving to read to loving to speak?
Uh, um, I don't I don't like to speak. I prefer to be on the opposite side of the camera. Um, and I'm still working at that. I got a community of people that's always pushing me into this side of things. And um, hopefully I'll find some passion on doing this.
Thank you, Michael. We have Sharon says, awesome share, impressive perseverance and determination to learn and get the books you wanted by making a plan. Kristen says, Michael, do you use the fabulous resources of the New York Public Library? Where can you get a physical, electronic, print, or audio version of 10,000s of?
Can you repeat that, Brother Zach?
Then she says books.
Oh, I don't know.
Kristen, do you want to follow up on your question and just unmute yourself and maybe ask it?
Yeah, Michael, you're making my heart sing as a former, I'm never a former librarian. I'm just not working at New York Public anymore. And I just want to make sure you know that you can go to any branch of a library, a public library in New York State. If you're up any branch in the Bronx, any branch, Staten Island, Manhattan, and you just have to prove that you work, which you do, live, go to school in New York City or New York State, actually. You get a library card that will allow you not only to borrow physical books, but hundreds of thousands of ebooks and audiobooks. And you can download the audiobook to your laptop, to your iPad. You can borrow Kindle books, all for free. This is all free at New York Public Library. So someone who was so voracious and took all that effort to save to buy the physical books, I think that's fabulous. I just would like to make things a little easier for you. And I know you have a real impact and influence on your colleagues and your brothers at Ignacio House. And I would want to make sure you would encourage all of them to get a library card. That's it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm gonna get on that. Thank you
Good.
so much.
Next question, very interesting. Where do we go from here, and how do you think that you can help other prisoners, Michael? That comes from Lloyd from Toronto, Canada. Wonderful.
So I think what I'm trending toward now is to becoming a storyteller for social justice. And that's the kind of work that I'm passionate about. That just involves, filmmaking, photography, and of course, creative writing. And I just want to position myself to tell other people's stories, or to put them in positions, to tell their stories and get their stories out there. And, and I think the best way I think that's the best way I could kind of, those are the best tools that I could kind of bring to my community of people who are formerly incarcerated, or even to the brothers that are still behind the wall, to kind of show them the importance the importance of telling your own story, the importance of being the master of the word. You know, when you're a master of the word, you have control of your reality. And when you have control of your reality, you create your own options in life. You create your own choices. And it all starts with being a master of the word. And if I could be good at, you know, these tools of filmmaking and photography and creative writing, then I could kind of demonstrate through my example, you know, through my own story, the importance of just being the master of the word, you know, and that's where it all begins, you know, and I think I want to kind of bring that to, you know, the community, to show them the value in just being a master at this.
Thanks so much, Michael, and thanks for everyone's questions. I think I'll
And,
toss it to
and
Jessica.
I just want to add, a thing or two about, you know, the impact that Flip the Script has had on my life. You know, I remember back in, you know, 2 years ago, I met Jessica at a Defy event where I actually, you know, faced my fear to speak before an audience, you know, and that was a life-changing event for me. And it was important because going through the program, the workshops, you know, it puts you in position to kind of see the language that's living inside you, that's kind of doing the sneaky work of just derailing your progress, or, you know, your possibilities, or just kind of preventing you from seeing your potential for good. And really working with the tools that Flip the Script provided me with, you know, really getting into the trenches of my pain and unpacking it and seeing the words that I've been using to kind of represent that, and how that was, you know, having a negative impact on, you know, who I am or how I think. It kind of just, you know, opened a lot of things up, because now I have choices. You know, as I said, now I'm thinking about filmmaking, I'm thinking about photography, I'm thinking about graduate school, I'm thinking about doing this and doing that, only because, you know, I went into the trenches to kind of figure out, you know, the gift in, you know, what I was feeling, what was hurting me. And that was only, you know, possible, you know, through the tools that Flip the Script provided me with, you know. So please believe in the work of, you know, storytelling. You know, it can literally, you know, open up people's lives to new possibilities.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Michael. That was fantastic. Before we bring Q on, we're going to show you guys a video, and something to note with the last two story sharers. So as they're sharing, keep some questions in mind so that you can put them in the chat and we can get to them right away. And then Zach can moderate that. So it was interesting. Just yesterday, actually, I bumped into somebody who was a speaker. He was one of the speakers at the very first Flip the Script event in Toronto. And he's somebody, his name is Wayne. And he is somebody who turned his prior experience as someone who was dealing drugs, incarcerated. Oh, 1 second, I just got to let someone in. And he turned that around and he started a meditation company, meditation organization, and an earth cleanup organization. So he flipped the script for sure, and he's doing amazing things. Anyways, I caught up with him yesterday and he was excited. Just 2 months ago, he released a music video. So we said that we would share it today. And I'm going to share this on my screen. And he goes by Rapper Double MC.
Clarity. Oh God, please help me find my clarity. I know I find it deep inside of me. Oh God, please help me find my clarity, clarity, clarity. I can't shake it, something's holding me down. I just can't seem to turn this around. I'm feeling weak, I don't get much sleep, and my voice wavers every time that I speak. I hide it well, my smile is so phony. Inside I'm tired and I feel so lonely. I'm so hungover from the alcohol, and I keep having thoughts of ending it all. No question, this is my confession. I'm aware now that I'm in a depression, in total agony, can't talk to my family, and past trauma holds me down like gravity. Each day it's hard to get out of bed. With all these messed up thoughts in my head, I think I know now why I feel so worthless. Deep under the surface, I feel I have a purpose. Oh Lord, please help me find my clarity. I know I find it deep inside of me. Oh God, please help me find my clarity, clarity, clarity. Not sure what's the reason. Maybe change of season. Deliver me to freedom and release me from these demons. In actuality, it's not a good mentality. Struggling financially and stressed up to capacity. A small part of me knows I'm still worthy. Please, God, hurry and show me some mercy. Please forgive me for all my mistakes. I swear to you, I'll do whatever it takes. Can't turn back time, can't press rewind. But the one thing I can change is my mind. I think it's time to take care of my body. Maybe open up and talk to somebody. Clear the space to put magic in its place and uplift the entire human race. Communication will remove separation, and meditation will shift your vibration. Lord, please help me find my clarity. I know I find it deep inside of me. Oh God, please help me find my clarity, clarity, clarity. To be mindful, to be kind to yourself is the key, and give yourself permission for your mind to be free. Truth be told, peace of mind is like gold, and I feel whole when I tap into my soul. Sometimes I'm in amazement how we get complacent. Life will pass you by if you're stuck in entertainment. It would be so stupid if we didn't use it. The power of music is forever undisputed. I feel it's time to volunteer and do some charity. See a new perspective and maybe gain some clarity. Don't allow negative thoughts to interfere. Have faith, let go, it will all become clear. There's one thing that I know to be true. The universe is incomplete without you. Enjoy it all, time takes no breaks. And remember, creation makes no mistakes. Please help me find my clarity. I know I find it deep inside of me. Oh God, please help me find my clarity, clarity, clarity.
So good, yeah. So shout outs to Wayne, aka rapper Double MC. He can't be here tonight, but yes, he's definitely here in spirit. So I'm going to bring on Q. Hopefully he's back.
Adventure means going where you haven't gone before. Road or maybe no road. The 2021 Ford Ranger with available FX4 off-road package and terrain management system. Adventure redefined. For great offers, contact your
Guys, I don't know where my YouTube thing went. Help.
If it makes you feel better, our president had the same issue yesterday at the climate meeting.
Oh my gosh, my YouTube is like gone, guys.
You might have to navigate out of Zoom to close.
I got it. Technology. Okay, I'm back. All right, so I'm gonna introduce Q. Q is our next story sharer, and from what I know about Q, he has a big heart for the youth. And, you know, he's someone through his experiences, you know, he talks a lot about adverse childhood experiences and the impact that it has as an adult. And, you know, that's very commendable. Again, someone who is a graduate of the Flip the Script program. So Q, wherever you are, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. And good evening to everyone that attends tonight. I really appreciate you all joining this event tonight. It really means a lot to all of us. Yeah, so I want to ask you a question. You know, have you ever in your life, found yourself in a situation so out of this world that all you can do is like marvel over the question of, wow, how did I get myself into this mess? You know, what have I got myself into? But the more important question would be, how am I going to get myself out? See, I can remember as if, you know, as if it was yesterday. It was a gloomy day outside. There was like a hesitance in the air, you know, where it was one of those type of eerie feelings, you know, where it just sends signals through my body and was telling me that, you know, something's about to happen. You know, it's like that song that says, I could feel it. I could feel it in the air. There's a song where it says that, and basically, what's going on is that you can just feel something is about to go down that's not going to be pleasant. But I can remember as if it was yesterday. You know, I was sitting up in that courtroom. You know, I was about to officiate a contract between the New York Department of Corrections. I was about to officiate a contract with them to give them the next 20 years of my life. You know, I know a lot of you may be wondering, 20 years, that's a long time. What did he do? You know, the question ain't, it's not what, you know, what did I do? I think it's more or less of what, you know, what has been done to me, you know. I'm going to share with you 3 contributing factors that led me to the path of my incarceration. Adverse childhood experiences, drugs, and gangs. And also I suffered, you know, a life of identity crisis. Because at one point my life spiraled downward uncontrollably. I had just basically, you know, given up at one point. I'd embraced the concept of, you know, I was just going to be a product of my environment and nothing more. Just a low life. You see, as a child, you know, I suffered verbal, physical, and psychological abuse from my father. But he too, you know, he had his own demons he was suffering with too. And his biggest downfall was his alcohol abuse. He spent most of his time out hanging out with his friends at bars, you know, and whenever he was home, he would just cause havoc to the house. You know, he would just come in and just take out his misery on the family, whether it be verbally or physically, you know. And I never understood that because we were the ones that was closest to him, but he would always take out his anger and frustration on us, you know, his family, you know. You know, I can remember you know, a time or two, or plenty of times, you know, my sister and I, you know, we would be laying in our bed sleeping, and out of the blue, we would hear a jingling in the key, you know, in the doorknob, which is the key. You know, someone trying to fumble and trying to put the key in the hole to open the door, and that sound became so familiar to us that we knew it was my drunken father trying to get in the house, but he was too drunk to find his way in. You know, my sister and I would look at each other, and, you know, for me personally, I felt very bad for my mother because I knew that this would be a night where she was going to get beat up again. You know, for some reason, my mother always got the bad end of the stick. My dad would come inside the house screaming, yelling, throwing things around, you know, grabbing on my mother, just throwing her around everywhere like a rag doll, just throwing her around the place. You know, you just beat her senseless most of the times, you know. And my mother was, you know, she was the glue to the family. She was the one that, you know, always tried her best to keep love, peace, and happiness within the walls of our house. You know, she made sure the house was clean. She made sure that our homework was done. And she just made sure that the little elements of family was lived in the house, although we were going through the circumstances of my father always being abusive to us. You know, she did everything that she could have done to keep the family together, but my father would do everything that he could do to tear it all apart. And he would just make all of us feel like, you know, like we were just worthless, like we're nothing. He was always speaking down of us, degrading us, you know. And for me personally, you know, that made me become very like disassociated with my feelings, you know, disassociated with my emotions for him. You know, everything I did, I began to doubt myself because my father instilled this sense of I was not good enough inside of me. You know, this type of repeated trauma, you know, it did nothing but confuse me. You know, my heart just grew cold, callous. I was defeated. You know, I was defeated. It all became too much for me to handle. I mean, can you imagine that? Can you imagine like just going through that at a young age as a child, you know, trying to find his way? I mean, like, how would that really make you feel? You know, how would that make you feel? You know, I found myself on many occasions at night on my knees, you know, or bent over my bed, just crying, asking God, why me? Why? Like, what did I do? What did I do to get in this situation? Why my family? Why me? Why I have to go through this? Why I have to witness this? Why me? And things weren't just getting, nothing would ever change. Nothing would ever change for me, you know. I just felt like God put me here on this earth just to torture. It was like I was living just to die, you know. And eventually, you know, I found myself at a point to where I became suicidal. Yeah, I became suicidal. I just wanted to, you know, I just wanted a way out. I was just searching for a way out, you know. So I began to self-medicate. And down this path of self-medication, I went from drug to drug to drug to drug, trying to fill this emptiness, this void within me. I was just trying to find something to fulfill that, but nothing ever, I never found anything that could fill that void. And then along this journey, I grew some addictions, you know, like how am I gonna, you know, get money to pay for these, you know, these addictions that I've indulged in, you know, how am I gonna do this? And that's what led me to joining my, there was a neighborhood gang, you know, that I had some affiliates with, but I got acquainted with them. And through the life of, you know, selling drugs and robbing and stuff like that, I was able to afford money to buy, you know, to purchase my drugs. In this new gang life that I was living in, it was a sense of like, I felt like I belonged there. Like I felt like my homies, my big homies, which was guys older than me, they were giving me love and they showed me how to, you know, I was getting this fulfillment that I wasn't getting at home from my father. You know, so I was loving this life. I was loving being with them. I loved being around them. You know, I snuck out at night just to hang with them, you know, and it was like we was living a life of above, you know, just being above the law. We created our own laws. There was no rules, you know, and it was like a high life for me. It was very exciting for me. I had all, I was getting money, you know, I was, you know, exploring with different drugs, you know, I was just doing me. Basically, I was doing me. So I dropped out of school. I moved out of my house because it was like, the more I stayed home, the more I would need more drugs to forget the experience that I would get when I, you know, when I returned home to my house to hear my father, all of my, you know, I had to use more drugs just to erase that, you know. So yeah, so that street life really got me into a place where, you know, I was just doing me, committing robberies after robberies, you know, just, you know, living that life, you know. But I wish someone would have told me, you know, then I wish someone would have told me the price that I had to pay for living that type of lifestyle. I wish someone would have told me that there were going to be consequences that I would have to pay at the end of this road. But there wasn't. Everything was all good until it wasn't. And that explains why I had to officiate a contract with the Department of Corrections to sign the next 20 years of my life over to them. Because I got caught up in a string of robberies that I was doing, and that life came to an end. So therefore I was incarcerated, but what I can say about my incarceration was that it saved my life. My incarceration saved my life because I know what I was getting into out there in the streets. And had I not gone to prison, I would have been dead. I wouldn't be here right now sharing my story with you. I would have been dead because I was really doing some foul stuff to people, to myself, and just being real careless about my life. It was in prison, I had enough time to sit with myself, to find myself. I took what was intended to be a punishment and I turned it into endless opportunities for me to create a self-rewarding future with my life. I'll never forget, it was this one visit I had with my mother. She came, sat in front of me, we were sitting in the visit, and the vibe was just off. We wasn't vibing, it was just off. But I couldn't help but notice the wrinkles around my mother's eyes, that she was getting older. And as I'm looking at her in her eye, I'm seeing all the pain, the torture, the suffering, all of this that I inflicted upon her. I'm feeling it. And I'm feeling real embarrassed right now because I did this to my mother. And the one thing I feared the most while I was incarcerated was having my mother die. Having my mother die, and I wasn't be able to go to her funeral. So with that pain and suffering and agony that I felt from my mother's eyes, it did something to me. It did something inside of me. I grew onto a conviction that I had to change my life. I couldn't continue to cause this pain and suffering to my mother or my kids anymore. So it was then that I embraced the power of choice. I chose to get myself straight. I chose to go to rehabilitation programs. I chose to educate myself. I chose not to go to the yard, not to go to the gym. I chose to go to the library to educate myself. I chose to learn about my addictions, to learn about my mental illnesses. I chose to get invested within myself so that I can become an asset to my family and my community upon my release. I chose to reinvent myself so that I can have something to show to my family that the pain and suffering wasn't in vain. I chose to do these things because I found my worth, and I was worth it. They was worth it. So it's from that moment that my life changed. And I really can say that I began to appreciate myself. I began to love myself. I was feeling alive inside. It's like all these years I was trying to find this thing outside of me when it was within me the whole time, and that was love. But I couldn't have found that love if there was no forgiveness. I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive my father. In order for me to move on in my life, I had to make these forgivenesses. And it was only then that I was able to move forward. Yeah, I chose to use the power of choice to live a better life. And I came to know that no matter how much drugs, no matter how much of the criminal lifestyle, no matter how much of those things in life that don't matter, no matter how much of all of this I indulge myself into, it was only me that could have made a difference, that could have made myself happy. It was love, it was forgiveness that I found only through forgiving myself, loving myself, finding my worth, and most importantly, finding God. So what I'm saying to you all is that, and I know we all human, there had been a time or two where you found yourself in a position to where all you can do is think of, how did I get myself into this situation? And how am I going to get out? And I know there's been a time or two Well, you had to ask yourself that. But what I'm saying to you is that please do not look down on incarcerated or formerly incarcerated individuals. Please do not look down on us unless you're looking down to give us a hand up. We need your support. We cannot do it alone. We cannot do it alone. Please let today be the first day of your new beginning of spreading the love and flipping your script. Thank you. Hello?
Thank you so much for that, Q. Thank you for allowing us into your life in that way. If anyone has questions, I encourage you to put them into the chat. Oh, Quentin, this is a Q. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is a question that comes from Martin. Quentin, what role did your faith play in your decision to make the choice to follow a new path? Did you find that the prison system supported your spiritual needs?
Well, truthfully, the prison system really don't care about personal growth and development. I had to hold myself accountable. And I'm being honest, you know. I had to hold myself accountable and you know, be responsible enough to actually go find my way, you know, to call home and ask my parents to send me books. You know, the only thing that I can say that the prison system did do, and I think they did this only by law. If this wasn't a law, I don't believe they would do this, but I was able to practice my religion in prison. And I don't even think they want us to do that. But through my religion, that was an outlet for me to actually, you know, help cultivate the seed of the new life that was growing within me. So I had to hold myself accountable.
Thanks, Q. There's a question from one of our brothers, and he's Don. He says that forgiveness is so important. Can you comment on the part or the role that shame might have played in your own life during incarceration?
Yeah. So I was, you know, deep down inside of me, I know that my mother didn't raise me to be no fool. She didn't raise me to be out in the streets. She didn't raise me to do, you know, to be doing the things that I was doing out in the streets. I knew deep down within me that wasn't me. That's not me. That's not me. So I felt ashamed when I got incarcerated that I had to face my family and tell them, yes, I'm in prison because I was out there doing this, I was out there doing that. Things that would embarrass them. They was ashamed and embarrassed at a point to tell family and friends that I was incarcerated. You know, I was embarrassed. I had to look my mother in the eye for the first time she came to visit me. I couldn't even really look in the eye because I was embarrassed. I know she didn't teach me how to be that person. She taught me better. So yeah.
Thanks, Q. John Booth is asking, keeping in mind, Q, that you did not deserve any of the abuse that you and your family suffered. Were you able to find an answer to your prayer of why that was happening or happened to you?
Yes, great question. So what, like I said, with my power of choice, I chose to educate myself. You know, I wanted to know what was going on with me, what was going on inside of me. So I started reading psychology books. I started reading books about trauma. You know, I started reading books about the body, the human body, human behavior. And it was then when I found out, you know, that I was suffering from trauma, you know, some mental illnesses. And, you know, I was broken. You know, I was broken, you know, and I needed to be fixed. So once I started to read and learn about what was going on within me, that's when I started reaching out, you know, to different services on the outside to get help. So did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Q. One last question comes from Roseanne Bonadia, and she says, you're very eloquent, Q. My nephew shared so much of your emotional reality abusive father and a mother who did the best she could. He came to live with me, and after 5 years, he was better and went home to see his parents. What advice can you give me to keep supporting him? Very good question.
Wow. Can you read that one more time, please, Brother Zach?
Oh, sure. Roseanne says that you're very eloquent, Q, and that she says, my nephew shared so much of your emotional reality, abusive father and a mother who did the best she could. He came to live with me, her, Roseanne, and after 5 years, he was better and went home to see his parents. But what advice can you give Roseanne as she continues to support him?
You know, and thank you very much, Roseanne, for that, for that sentiment. My advice that I would give, and I hate giving advice, I really do, but what I would do is never turn my back on him. Like to always try to like meet him where he's at. Try to understand him. Just I would try to learn about him. Just about the things that he loves, his interests, and things like that. I would try to learn about the things that makes him happy. What can continue to make him happy. I would try to learn about, how he, his feelings. How do he feel? Really, like feelings, not like, oh, I'm good, I'm all right. No, let's learn about feelings. I am down today, I'm depressed today, I'm happy today. So I would say really, I would build a relationship with him so that I can learn about the feelings that he's feeling. And that would create an opportunity for me to actually, to meet him where he's at so that we can build that relationship of trust. And then we can actually talk about, whatever it is he wants to talk about, anything, whether it be things that's going on at home, things that's going on with him. It has to start somewhere, and just talking about feelings is a good place to start. And just being open to, whatever it is he has to say, not to be quick to judge, just be open.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Q, and thank you, Roseanne, for that those questions, and for all of you for your questions. Your very insightful questions. I'm going to turn this over to Jessica now.
Hold on 1 second, please. 1 second.
Yes.
Yeah, 1 second. So yes, and to conclude, right, I would like to say that, as Michael said, we Flip the Script was an awesome opportunity for me to get to know myself and my own feelings, parts of me that I didn't know that existed. When I went through the Flip the Script program, it gave me the opportunity to be vulnerable. When you're in prison or in that prison culture, there's a silent rule that you can't be soft or you can't be into your feelings. So coming home and being in the Flip the Script program around other formerly incarcerated brothers, it gave us a place to be vulnerable and to dig inside of ourselves to find out our stories that we can use to help share with our peers or anyone, to help them wherever they're at in their life. So it gave me the ability to be vulnerable. Unlike in prison, I had to like not be vulnerable, but I felt really, really good because I had that opportunity to be with the brothers and to be adjusted for that amount of time, and to learn about crafting my story and just feeling good about myself, yeah, so let's just, continue to keep this Flip the Script going and see where it takes us.
Beautiful share. Thank you so much, Q. And we are going to bring on our final story sharer of the evening, Noble. And Noble loves to travel for fun. Second of all, he loves to travel with family. And third of all, he loves to travel. So Noble, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me? All right, cool. The reason why I love to travel is like, after being inside the prison, inside that cell for so long, I did 24 years. And so I'm the epitome of not letting grass grow under my feet. So with that being said, I want to share with you a parable. It's about the Chinese bamboo. And the parable goes like this. It says, if you take the seed of the bamboo tree and you plant it that first year, you water it, and you feed it, nothing happens. You come back that second year, you water it and you feed it, nothing happens. You come back that third year, you water it and you feed it, nothing happens. You come back the fourth year, you water it and you feed it, guess what? Nothing happens. But if you come back in that fifth year and you water it and you feed it, that bamboo tree will grow 96 feet. So the question remains, did it grow 96 feet within that fifth year, or was it growing all along? So the reason why I share with you that short story about the bamboo tree, that story can be applied to all of our lives, the trajectory of our lives, whether it turned out to be good or whether it turned out to be bad. There's always some seed that's been planted within inside of us to make us who we are today, our bad moments as well as our good moments. Me personally, I was tried and convicted for robbery in the first degree and murder in the second degree. For certain reasons, I won't go into details about the crime because there are people who are still litigating the crime. But within the robbery and the murder, it started out as a robbery, but sometimes things don't go as it's supposed to go, or as you would like them to go. And so therefore, an individual life was taken. And the individual life was taken, he was a retired corrections captain. Also in the process, 4 people were shot, myself included. I sustained 2 gunshot wounds to the back of my neck, 1 to the back of my right buttocks, and about 4 or 5 to the lower extremities of my body and both my legs. I remember when my grandmother came to the hospital and the detectives, they showed her a picture and she described to me, she said, "You look like you was dead." Because at the time that the crime happened in America, if you're under a certain age, you don't have permission to give a doctor to perform surgery on you. It has to come from an elder or your what you call that, your parent. And so while I was laying in that hospital, the doctor was like, "We need somebody to contact to give us authority to operate on you. You're losing a lot of blood." I didn't want to call my mother because I was afraid that she would have a heart attack. I didn't want to call my grandmother because I was afraid she would have a heart attack. So I called my aunt, but my aunt didn't know my government name. So they said, "The lady that you asked me to call, she doesn't know who you are." She said, "We need somebody that knows who you are so we can take you to the operating room." So I said, either it's going to be my mother or my grandmother. So I went with my grandmother. And so when my grandmother came there, the detectives, they showed her a picture of me lying there, my eyes is closed, and she gave consent. So fast forward, I'm going to trial for robbery murder. It's 5 of us on trial, and we're going to trial by 2. There's 6 of us on trial. We're going to trial by 2s. I was the first batch of 2s. Then my next 2 co-defendants, then my next 2 co-defendants after that. And after all the evidence was presented, the jurors came back with a guilty verdict. I felt like I had an out-of-body experience when I heard that guilty verdict. Because at the time of the crime, I was 17 years old. When I went to trial, I was 18 years old. I couldn't compute spending 25 years of my life inside of a prison system. And when you get sentenced, they don't give you a manual and say, "Okay, you're about to do 25 years in an adult prison system. And so this is how you do time." There's no code of ethics that they give you. They said, "This is your time, this is where you're going, and you do it the best way you know how." And so at the tender age of 18, I was thrown in an adult prison system. I was fortunate enough that I walked away with no scars, physical scars, but nobody escapes that situation unscathed. I have a lot of psychological scars that I still deal with to this day. But I was fortunate to be around some individuals who was, how can I say, who was proactive in jail or who was proactive in prison. A lot of the stories that we sometimes we see on TV or that we hear in the paper, we don't never really get to see the other side of that story. That you do have individuals that enter into that system and they recognize the error of their ways and they seek ways to try to change that. And so these are the individuals who I was able to surround myself with. And while I surrounded myself with, you know, I got into a lot of human services and things like that. And so I like to just point out one thing too, that Hugh mentioned something about the power of choice. Everybody who experienced going into prison come across that revelation about the power of choices. Because one of the things I learned about the power of choice is that every time we make a choice, and this is just not me, every time one of us, I'm talking about everybody in the Zoom, that we make a choice, we have somebody that's connected to that choice, whether we know them or don't know them. And when I come to find out that the choice that was made to commit a robbery that went bad, it not only affected my family, but it also affected the victim's family. It affected his family for a lifetime. It affected my family for a lifetime in different ways. I remember when I got sentenced and I was doing prison time, my thought was like, I got to get back to the streets because why? This is not living. This is for animals. I said, I'm not an animal. I may have done some things that was criminal, but I don't deserve to be inside of a cage like I'm an animal. And so that was just my mantra. I got to get out of prison. I got to get out of prison. But if you would have asked me, what's your reason for getting out of prison? I would have never gave you a solid reason within my first 5 years. And so what I learned about me while serving time, I learned I had to have time serve me. So in my second 5 years, I had to develop a purpose for me coming out of prison. What is my purpose for coming out of prison? And my first reason for my purpose started with my youngest brother, Willis. In New York State Penitentiary, we allowed to get family day visits where your family could come up on a visit and you in a yard setting, they bring food, they cater food, you're allowed to walk your family around the yard, whatever have you, mingle, and it's a little bit more freedom. So at the time, I believe I was 20 years old. And my younger brother asked, he said, when you coming home? So right then and there, I knew my mother didn't disclose to the fact that, one, what I was locked up for, and two, how much time I was serving. So the way I raised my younger brother, because majority of the time he was with me because my mother had to work. And so I take him to school, pick him up from school, and he's with me for the remainder. So the way I raised him that we always had a candid relationship. So I told a 10-year-old younger brother that I'm locked up for a robbery murder. You understand that? He said, yeah, but I could still see it's not computing. I said, they gave me 25 years. So you understand that? I could see the befuddlement in his mind. He's trying to do the calculations. I said, 25 years mean that I at least have to do 25 years of this prison sentence before they release me. But I didn't kill his hope. I said, but there's always there's other outlets for me to get that time reduced. And I explained to him about the appeal process. But I sent him home with that to think about because one, I didn't want him to think that what I was incarcerated for was something to be applauded. Because we have this sick type of mindset within the neighborhoods that we come from. If you rob somebody, if you kill somebody, that's to be applauded. So I didn't want him to walk away from that visit or that festival thinking that. The second thing that caused me to start shaping my purpose, and detailing why I needed to get out, is that I remember when my mother came to visit me, and we was on a visiting floor, on the visiting room, and we was laughing, and we was joking, we was reminiscing. And so we was reminiscing about when I was younger, because when I was younger, she had to go to work before we got let out for school. And when we came back from school, she wasn't there to let us in. And so there was no money in the budget for a babysitter. So my mother told me and my eldest brother, who was 5 years my senior, she said, here's the key. You to let yourself out for school and you let yourself back in. At no given time, there's nobody that don't belong in here, that don't live here, to be in this house. And so we learned that, the time frame where, where there was a window period that mommy wouldn't know whether we was in the house or not. And so we rip and run the streets. And so I was, we was reminiscing about that when she called us, whatever have you. And I said, why did you, at the age of 6, like, why did you give me so much responsibility? Like, giving me the key to let myself in, and trusting me with the rent money to take it, to make sure the rent get paid. And that's when she broke down. She said, because I trusted you. I never knew that she trusted me like that. But it was until I was inside that cell that I was able to go back in time and actually just like view my life and view the relationships that I had and see how we impacted one another. And so that sent me back to the cell. I was like, wow. And I seen the hurt when she explained it to me. Now, prior to, a lot of times that, Hugh can attest to this, Michael can attest to this, anybody that been incarcerated can attest to this, that when your families come to see you, they don't show that hurt, that pain. They laughing, they joking, how you doing? We all right, boom, boom, this and the third. But we all sugarcoating our feelings. But that moment right there let me know that how much I hurt my mother and how much trust she had in me and how much she believed in me. And I left with a firm resolve from that visiting floor that I'm going to reinstate that resolve that my mother had for me, even if I have to die trying. And so, but the last thing that will propel me to, like, get my act together, to let me know that crime is not a lifestyle that's meant for me, was that my mother, she told me, she said, I called one day and she said, I was snooping around on Willis, which is my younger brother who I was talking about earlier. I was snooping around on his computer and he has an assignment. I said, okay. She said, do you know what the assignment is? I was like, nah, what's the assignment? She said, the assignment that he has is that if I can be anybody in this world, who would it be and why? So I said, okay, that was a good assignment. So she said, do you know who you picked? I said, nah. She said, I'm gonna read it to you. So she goes into the computer and she pulls up the file, whatever have you. And she said that, and I quote, she said, if I can be anybody in this world, it would be my oldest brother, Alton Brown. And said the reason why is because the next time I go and see him, I can stay in prison and give him an opportunity to come home and live his life. That right there blew me. All the times I was talking to him, I didn't know he was holding feelings. Because where we come from, if I ask you how you are, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, but we're not good. The trauma that we experiencing, we just sugarcoating and it becoming more traumatized and creating more dysfunction in our lives. And so when she told me that, I made it my every effort. Every phone call that I was able to get in contact with him, I make sure I instill something in him that will resonate with him to do right. But it would be in 2015 that I would lose my little brother to violence. And I never forget the time that I'll have to go down there in prison shackles to see my brother off. I have visions of coming home with all my brothers being under the same roof and we doing brotherly things. And I wasn't afforded that right. And I was angry at the person who contributed to my little brother losing his life. But then one of us, we talked about forgiveness in our stories. And I was like, you can't be a hypocrite. You was a part of an individual getting his life taken away 20 years ago. How do you think his family felt? So that was a reality check. Hard pill to swallow, but I had to swallow. So those are some of the things that contributed to me, like, I don't want nothing to do with criminality no more. And if I ever have to deal with criminality, I'll be on the other side, you know, enlighten people about, you know, the pros and cons, which is so many cons. It's a setup for everybody to, you know, to keep reliving trauma and generational trauma. And so, you know, during the course of me being in prison, I was able to hone a skill in which in the States we call human services. And so I became a facilitator to the Muslims. I became a facilitator to non-Muslims. And I became one who became facilitated too. And I was fortunate to come home and be able to become gainfully employed, facilitating to people. My main takeaway from being in prison was that no matter how dire a situation may look, as long as you got hope, you can always see yourself through the situation. We all have that inner ability to tap into our resilience and become who we know we can be, and also instill it into others. So I thank you for listening. I thank you for being a part of this Flip the Script with this collaboration with Ignacio House. I thank Flip the Script for giving me the opportunity to share my story. And I also thank them for giving me, Q, and Michael an invite to the Uganda trip that's being sponsored by some former athletes in the NFL, so we can go and share our stories. And I pray that I said that's something that resonates with inside of you all, whether you've been criminally justice impacted or you have somebody that has been criminally justice impacted. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noble. Thank you for sharing with us. Questions and comments for Noble, please feel free to put them in the chat for us. A few minutes left, so we'd like to have a few questions for Noble before.
Brother Zach, for some reason, it's not letting me text, but can I say something to the brothers real quick?
Of course.
Good evening, everybody. Quentin, Michael, and Noble, thank you so much. Very powerful story right there. Y'all did a great job, man. I just want to say thank you, man, for sharing.
Thank you.
Kristen just put a comment, Noble, that I thought was says, it seems to me that you could be a master storyteller as well as a human resources facilitator. Your story built so dramatically, almost cinematic. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
These are the types of experiences that we like to offer for our resident scholars at Ignacio House. Chance for our resident scholars to be able to delve deep into their own lives and to share their own stories, not have other people share their stories and not let textbooks write about who they are and what they're all about, but for let them tell their stories and who they are with the world in their own words, in their own language. Sue just wrote, Noble, did you get to see your other brothers on release, and was your mom still alive to see?
Yeah, all together I have 3 brothers, one from my father, 2 from my mother. So the remaining 2 brothers was there along with my cousin. The only one I didn't get to see was my grandmother. She was trying to hold off, but you know, when death comes, it doesn't say, okay, I'm gonna give you this time frame or whatever have you. It just comes and take you. And so my grandmother passed away 10 days before I was released. from pancreatic cancer.
Noble, Terry asks, what plans do you have for yourself going forward to spread your message?
Continue collaborating with Flip the Script, some other organizations, reentry organizations that do the same work. I'm a part of a trauma innovation initiative that was funded by this city of New York. And so that also entails, telling your story, and not only telling your story, like, just walking the walk. So those are some of the things that I plan on doing. I'm open to suggestions though.
One last question, Noble, for you. It comes from Anita. What is one word advice you would give someone who is approached by gangs, and how to avoid a young person from getting involved in them?
You said one word?
That's what she said, yes.
Become invisible. Because there is no one word to describe it. It's like gangs, they feed on fear, not fear like physical fear, but fear like I don't have nobody to belong to, so I fear to be alone. And you look like the right fit for right now. So the only thing I can advise her is like show that loved one that you care, And one thing is with us youngins, like when we're coming up, we don't care how much you know till we know how much you care. And you have to learn the language of the young people. You can't be talking to us like we're still in the 60s, 70s, or the 80s. So speak to them, in the language that they understand, and make sure you always instill in them that, I'm here for you.
Thanks so much, Noble. Thank you, Noble. Thank you, Quentin. Thank you, Michael. Might we all just kind of unmute ourselves and just give all these wonderful brothers a great round of applause for their sharing.
Awesome.
I also would like to share a very sincere, deep. I'd like to share a very deep, sincere thanks to Jessica Brown and Tara DeWorsa for facilitating this evening as well. I would like to remind everyone at the event tonight, there are numerous ways to get involved with Thrive for Life, and through our Ignacio House, we have a vast array of volunteers who are dedicated spiritual mentors who offer our retreats behind the walls, but we have wellness mentors and academic mentors who are offering writing classes, cooking classes, trauma classes, to our men through enrichment activities at Ignacio House. So I really strongly encourage you and remind you to follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter right on our Thrive for Life website. And if you're able, let's help take this gift that has been given to Noble and Q and Michael, a gift that should not be hoarded, but it needs to be shared with so many people, a gift that we can share with all our resident scholars at Ignacio's with your generosity. I also hope that next month you're going to join us for our next virtual event. We have a great sociologist from the University of Chicago, Ruben Miller, just came out with a new book called Halfway Home, Race, Punishment, and Afterlife of Mass Incarceration. Ruben Miller is a wonderful sociologist, but even more than that, this is a very pivotal book, a book that has just as much weight as Brian Stevenson's Just Mercy when it first came out. He's talking really about that walk from outside the gates of prison back into the community, and just the obstacles that our brothers and sisters are facing as they get out, and action steps for us as we move forward. So please watch the newsletter, watch our notices to join us for this great event. Jessica, thank you for your courage. Thank you for your inspiration. Thank you for the great gift that you are to these men and to our community. And maybe we could end by just having a round of applause for you.
Thank you so much, Zach. I so appreciate this. It's great to do this collaboration. Thank you everyone for showing up, Toronto community, New York community, and I acknowledge the sharers for sharing so beautifully and courageously. I just appreciate all of you for showing up. And thank you again, Zach.
Thank you. And may this springtime be a great blessing for all of you. Go in peace. Thanks be to God.
Have a good night, everyone.